Good morning. I woke up this morning realizing that I had to make a decision about something. Before I went to bed last night, Kelly said, "Do you ever try any of my tea?" Now I gotta be. I have to confess to you. I gotta be honest. I've become a tea snob. I don't like the store bought teas that come in the boxes and all that. But I wanted to honor my wife. I wanted to try and think maybe, last night I talked about experience. Maybe I was going to have an experience I didn't expect this morning. So here I am. Notice in my teacup, there's a bag in my tea. So I'm drinking a bagged tea. I don't really know what brand it is. It's something we picked up somewhere along the way. And I got to tell you something. I chose the tea myself, so I'm totally responsible for this. It's terrible. I just can't stand it. I can taste the powder coming out of the bag. Maybe I'm a tea snob. Maybe someday I'll pay for this, but I just don't like this tea. And so it is a choice I made. Nobody made me do this. And that's what I want to talk to you about this morning. I want to talk to you about choices that we make and the consequences for those choices. So get yourself something, put me on pause, get yourself something. We're going to take a few minutes to look at this and talk our way through it, and then I'll let you go on with your day. So once you get settled, I'd like you to turn in your Bibles to the book of Joshua, chapter 24. And we're going to start here in verse 14, but let me give you the lay of the land, the context. Joshua has come into the promised land. It's been quite a fight to occupy the promised land, but they've had victory. God has given them victory left and right. He's given them the land. They have divided it up. All the tribes know where they're going to be. A little bit of discussion over that. Not everybody did exactly what they were supposed to do, and of course there'll be consequences for that. And some of the tribes are over on the other side of the Jordan, and right there towards the end of Joshua, when everything's settled and they have control more or less of the land, they won't have complete control of everything that God promised them until Solomon comes. So God's promise will be good. It will take some time for it to work out. And that's okay. God blesses them. But they gather everybody at Shechem, which is right in the middle of Israel. And in Shechem, there's a valley between Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. And so they set up an altar at Shechem. And Joshua puts half of the people on Mount Gerizim and half of the people on Mount Ebal. And on Mount Gerizim, they pronounce all of the blessings that are available to God's people if they worship God, if they obey Him. And the other half of the nation, standing on Mount Ebal, pronounce all the curses. Now, you should go back and take a look at that. The curses are pretty breathtaking. And so the curses are there if they don't obey God. And so we pick up here in verse 14, and we see where all these things have been done, and Joshua speaks to the people, and he says, "Now therefore fear the Lord, and serve Him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord." He said, your ancestors didn't get it right, and now you have an opportunity, you have a fresh start. Now you can serve the Lord. Thank Him for the things that He's given you, this land that you're standing on. And verse 15, he says, "And if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Now, I want you to see what just happened. A lot of people look at this and go, oh, they've got to decide whether or not they're going to follow God. Well, to a certain extent, I guess we could say that, but really, they're already God's chosen people. These are the 12 tribes. They are the fulfillment of the promise made to Abraham, sons of Isaac. And God promised that they would be a blessing to the nations, that they would occupy this land. They are God's chosen people. And what Joshua is telling them is choose how you're going to be the chosen people. You have the opportunity to choose between blessing, Mount Gerizim, or hardship, Mount Ebal. How you walk forward from this moment will depend on whether or not you obey God or don't obey Him. If you obey Him, you're going to have all these incredible blessings. If you don't obey Him, it's going to be really hard on you. Now, of course, all the people say, oh, we're going to serve the Lord, but then they proceed not to do it. And so they experience the hardship. And the thing we need to know is that throughout the hardship, they never stop being God's people. God never leaves them, never forsakes them. They just have a hard time. You and I are in the middle of making a lot of choices about how we're going to go forward. And God has given us the capability to make these choices. We have the free will to choose how we will walk with the Lord. And we can debate until Jesus comes back how we got there. But that's not what this is about. This is about making the conscious decision how much you're going to obey the Father. That's what's happening in Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. And that's what's happening with us right now. So we can choose whether or not we're going to walk close with the Lord, whether or not we're going to have an incredible relationship with Him, or whether or not we're going to kind of do it on our own and do what seems good to us. I mean, that's what happens in the book of Judges. They become a land that does what seems good to each one of them. And it doesn't turn out well. It's a mess. Okay? So, as we begin to make choices about how we go forward, God's given us this time to reflect on our relationship with Him, this time to get more familiar with the Word. I mean, if we're going to obey Him, we have to know what the Word says. We have to be familiar with it. And so we will get to choose how we emerge from this, whether or not we emerge from it in blessing or whether or not we emerge from it in hardship. So I pray that God gives you wisdom. I pray that He gives you discernment. I pray that the Spirit moves in you and draws you into the Scriptures and a deeper knowledge of who our Father is and the blessings that He wants for each one of us. I pray that this is the tone that your day goes through as we begin to make decisions going into the weekend, and maybe decisions that will affect us for the rest of our lives. Consider this. Take a look at Joshua, the last couple chapters leading up to 24, and then look at 24. Hey, I love you. I miss you. I'll talk to you again tonight.